Welcome back. Yep, another day of voiceovers. Hooray. So today I'll save you the trouble. Don't look it up. Teratomas are gross. It is a tumor that grows other stuff like hair and teeth. So, yep, that's the theme. I kind of stole it from the Binding of Isaac. And by stole, I mean that's like where I got the original idea. And then my idea was to make it a horrifying monstrosity creature that could move around. And yes, the I guess 6 fingers on each hand is intentional. Just the thought of Teratoma growing foreign extra things. So, extra finger. It's the natural conclusion or whatever. I also tried to make it look more warped to like normal anatomy, so like the stomach is more bent, I guess, is how I thought of it. And obviously there's no real muscles that are equivalent to people muscles, like they're all warped or shifted in strange ways or sized oddly. I mean, some of them are probably close enough if you looked at a real person, but none of them are trying to be real. And one giant eyeball. I think there was a case of a teratoma growing an eyeball. You could look it up if you want, but I didn't. I just thought I heard about that somewhere. And this is much more directly disgusting compared to other stuff I've done. So, I mean, that's pretty obvious. I'm adding teeth now. That kind of looked like apple seeds to me when I made them. I was like, hey, these don't really look like teeth. So I try to make them look better. But I also am not trying to intentionally make them look like any actual human teeth that you'd have. Just kind of generic-y, bone-shapey, or colored teeth. And I added a neck here just to make it even more human-esque, even though there is no head, and clearly that giant shouldered mass with the eye is more of the head in this scenario. Also right above the chest mouth, I guess. I'm gonna call it a chest, even though it's not really a chest. It's in the same spot. But right above the chest mouth is like a peck, but it is going completely vertically instead of to the shoulder. I don't think that I'm just going like, it's in the right spot for a person, but it is not done correctly because it is not a person. And it is not, well, it is trying to be, but is it really? I also went with a bluey gray color palette just to differentiate it from like a horrible flesh monster, because yes, it is a horrible flesh monster, but it's not supposed to be like bloodied or anything. It's just supposed to be some weird dried up gross mass. And I did add some red, like eventually to where the teeth are coming from. And on the eye, I had like veins and more red, fleshy colored color. You know, the usual to indicate inside of things. I tried to give a good range of texture on the flesh of like tight skin, or I would say kind of holy. People with tryptophobia, look out. But I just tried to mix it up since it's supposed to be all more of a patchwork of flesh. And I also thought about like, I think they're called the brutes from Left 4 Dead, or the tanks, where they have one massive, disgusting arm. Just because when you think of like uncontained growth like a tumor, that comes to mind as something that, in theory, could happen, I guess. And it gives a much more interesting silhouette. Especially if you completely blacked it out, it looked like the shoulder part could be a head, even though when you can see the whole thing, it is just a shoulder with a horrible eyeball. Horrible in terms of terrifying and not done horribly. I think it's done okay. I liked the eyeball. I also added, I guess they'd be divots in the arm that I, at one point, add some teeth to. Another warning to tryptophobes. It fits. And if you, going back to the Binding of Isaac, if you look at Teratoma in that game, it is more of like a holy mass with weird tendrils and teeth. Gross stuff. Generic body horror. And you can grow one today. All it takes is a body. And a lot of time. Or not that much time. Depends on how terrible it is. I also eventually add tiny little hairs to it. Because, you know, that's nice. That's really, really great to look at on a horrible flesh mass. But right now, I'm just doing my usual, adding tiny little details with tiny little brushes of lights and darks. And adding little veins in with the lights and giving them tiny little shadows. I'm basically just trying to make it as horrific as I can. I tried to make it look like around the teeth if it had actual gums, even though they're the weird blue color. And I also connect those gums into the rib cage, or what would be the rib cage. I have not decided if this has like actual bone structure or if it is just a horrible flesh mass. I've been thinking horrible flesh mass, but I did give it the details of ribs that are also gums. And like it has teeth, but teeth aren't connected to this whole skeleton. So I mean, who knows, maybe it's just full of teeth. What a great thing to think about. Yeah, here's where I'm adding the teeth into other places. Delicious. Really gets the blood pumping. And not in a good way. I add some light to the eyeball, and if you look, I have some light on top of the iris, but then like a more half crescent-y amount of light on the bottom, just because I imagine the light coming from the top. So because of the cornea coming out on the eye, a little bit of light catches on the top of the cornea. So then the top of the iris will also have some reflection on top of it. And then the bottom will, because it's like reflecting off of everything else in the room. And it's not shaded by the eyelid. There's your art tip for the day. I can't really give you much on like actual art tips for this because if you wanted to learn actual anatomy, this is not the thing to look at. I mean, I guess general shape, maybe, kinda, sorta. Like you can see facsimiles of a collarbone, and ribs, and a knee, tendons on the hands, I guess. It's not great. This is not for the squeamish. Adding my generic background because I could literally not think of anything to put as a background for this. Maybe some horrible hospital, I guess. I don't know. I'm just going and adding multiply of the like a mid-tone of the skin color that I used just to darken up some spaces. And yes, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this horrific drawing for today. And I gotta go. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Goodbye. Have a good day.